Section 1. The Means. 1. Shut down on campus. I am not a cradle Christian. In fact, for a long time, I wasn't a Christian at all. For several years, I would have described myself as a wistful agnostic. I sensed something was missing. I had a longing I couldn't name, a thirst I couldn't quite fill, an ache for something I couldn't quite put my finger on. I recently discovered a file of papers that I had written for an English class in my final year as a high school student. I was astonished to see how clearly the papers revealed my search for meaning. In one paper, I wrote, "What the author addresses in this novel, I identify with as well." Does this nostalgia, this sense that we are created for something more, that something more seems promised, have any answer in objective reality? Is there an answer to this inconsolable thirst that he writes about? The high school I attended was a public school, not a Christian one. Nevertheless, my teacher wrote on the margin side, "Becky, you are on the most important journey any human being can ever travel. Though you may not know it, you are searching for God. Do not settle for cheap substitutes. Knock on every door and keep knocking until you have your answer. Whatever you do, don't give up." In my search for meaning, I explored other religions and other philosophies. Everything I read left me unsatisfied. Yet I had never investigated Christianity, nor read one page of the Bible, because I assumed that having been raised in North America, I already understood it. Then I read two books that changed my life. The first was the novel The Fall by Albert Camus, a French atheist existentialist who convinced me that I was a sinner. That may sound an odd conclusion to draw from reading an atheist author, but his unflinching analysis of the human heart was so devastating that it erased any hope of my ever becoming an optimistic humanist who saw only the bright side of human nature. My trouble with Camus, however, was that while he was deeply realistic about the dark side of human nature, he had no satisfactory answers to explain the good that we do see. I then came across a book by C.S. Lewis, Mere Christianity. Lewis introduced me to the landscape of Christianity. While there were superficial similarities among the major religions, I was struck by how different the Christian faith was from anything I had read. Lewis also sparked my interest in the Bible. I began reading the Gospels and found myself captivated by Jesus. Ultimately, I surrendered and committed my life to Jesus Christ, a story I'll talk more about in the next chapter. Finding the Hunger. Shortly after I became a Christian, I went away to university. I was a young Christian with very little Bible knowledge, but I knew that Christians were supposed to tell others about Jesus. The problem was that I lacked the courage. Like many Christians I meet today, I assumed sharing my faith meant proclaiming the message to every person I met without drawing breath. I hadn't a clue about how to raise the topic of faith naturally. I worried that I'd offend people and that I wouldn't be able to answer their questions. So I remained silent, hoping people would somehow catch on by seeing my life. In my first year at university, I had two very significant experiences. First, during my first semester, I attended a Christian conference. The topic was evangelism, and I went along hoping it would alleviate my fears and give me the courage I sorely lacked. The first talk was on the biblical imperative of evangelism, and I felt both inspired and convicted. In the second talk, though, I began to struggle. The topic was how to be a witness, and the speaker made 3 points. Share the gospel with as many people as possible in a day. He offered some stock phrases to introduce the topic. Always press for a commitment to Christ. If they aren't interested, then move on to another person. Regard their questions as smokescreens, things people use to avoid considering faith. Answer their questions if possible, but realize that their questions probably indicate a lack of spiritual openness.